United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So just bear with us for a minute. We have a little bit of administrative business to handle. John, I'll turn it over to you for a second. Thank you.
We have to do some reappointments. So I would initially ask for a motion and make a motion that we appoint Rich Weissman as chairman.
A second.
All in favor? Aye.
Well, thank you very much. Did I say that sarcastically enough? Will the record reflect the sarcasm? All right. So next order of business is to elect a vice chair. So I would nominate John Lord for that position. Is there a second? Take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, next we have to adopt our rules, and the rules haven't changed. I don't think there's any reason to change them unless Gus tells us otherwise. So I would make a motion that we adopt the rules as they have existed, at least from last year. Is that a fair motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And lastly, we need to reappoint our solicitor, and Gus has helped steer the ship well over the past few years that I've been on the board, so it's my pleasure to nominate Constantine as our solicitor. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, and then lastly, just unfortunately, he's not here. We didn't have a meeting in December, but I did want to publicly thank Brad DeLisa for his, I think, about a decade, if not more, maybe 12 years of service to the zoning hearing board. He will be missed, the perspective that he brings, and hopefully we've got some new members who's not here tonight, but they will have some big shoes to fill for Brad. So thank you, Brad. Okay. On to some business. So first is appeal number 3171, the applicant Hopton Holdings LLC, property located at 244 Abrams Lane, zoned R1 residential. The property is legally non-conforming as to use as a result of the presence of 8 small single-family homes located on the 4.9-acre property. Applicant proposed the construction of an additional home on the property. Applicant seeks a special exception pursuant to Section 280-101A of the Zoning Code regarding changes to non-conforming uses. The proposed new construction complies with all dimensional and coverage requirements of the Zoning Code. Applicant seeks such other relief which may be required in conformity with the plans and testimony presented.
Evening, Nick Cornelia representing the applicant. And I may need another mic if you have it there, Rich. So I've marked this as A8. We'll introduce it as the hearing goes forward on it. The witness will be Matt Paolino, who's the managing member of the applicant. The parcel we're speaking about is this parcel here. It's on Hopton. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 homes on it currently. They've been in the Montgomery Scott family until very recently. They were built approximately in the 1920s, over 100 years ago, and they housed the Montgomery Scott workers while they were occupying the larger property known as Adrossan. The parcel here is this parcel that we're talking about and going out to Leslie. The house is being proposed, one home is being proposed in this area. There are 2 other lots that are not subject to this hearing this evening. There's a lot here under Arborview Partners and another lot, separate lot, Arborview Partners. So this plan actually shows 3 lots, 1, 2, and the 3rd lot, which is what what we're here this evening about. All right, Matt?
I do.
And Matthew Paolino. Paolino.
And Matt, what is your relationship to the applicant, Hopeton Holdings?
I am the managing member
And where do you reside?
in Radnor Township.
Long time?
40 plus years.
Is Hopeton the owner of the property?
Yes, they are.
And I've marked as A2 a copy of the deed. And is this when you acquired it? It appears to be May 16th, 2022.
That sounds correct, yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as A3, which is an aerial view of the property. If they can clear in, and if perhaps you can just point out the area we're talking to, if you can kind of show the board where Hopeton is and where the house approximately would be located.
Well, this is Hopeton Lane right here, and it's the sort of horseshoe-shaped semicircle. And then their garage is here, and then behind it, in this treat area, is the area where we're proposing to construct a new home. It's pretty much behind Mr. Kemp's property here, and the access we were proposing would be right along here,
Out to Leslie.
out to Leslie, yes.
And A7, we revised the application, is that correct? And A7 is the application that we made?
Yes.
That's before the board here this evening? What is the current use on this site? Well, first, let me ask you the total lot area. It's up here in the right-hand corner of the plan.
214,000 plus square feet.
Almost 5 acres, I guess.
Yes.
4.9 acres. And this plan here, this shows the homes. You heard me state on the opening, if you could just reiterate the homes that are located on Hopeton.
Well, right now there's 8 cottages. They're all presently occupied by tenants. Some have been there 10 plus years. Others are more recent since I purchased it. And they all live there.
And the proposed home, would that also be a tenant occupied
Yes.
home? And what are the ages of these homes?
They were built, on my understanding, is somewhere in the early 1920s.
And how were they used when they were constructed?
Workers for the estate lived in these homes.
I'll ask the board, zoning came into effect in Radnor. Basically, what we're saying, this is a legal non-conforming use here. I asked the board to take judicial notice. I do have copies, if you want me to hand them up, that zoning in Radnor took effect in 1928.
It's not, we'll,
Okay.
we'll cut that. Thank you.
And also, we actually made a request by right to know to see if there's any zoning history, subsequent zoning history on their site, on this site, and was there any?
None.
And actually, again, I received a response from the township saying they had no zoning history. I can hand that up. Perhaps I should.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
can make part of the record.
I'll mark it as A9. And my request, as you'll see, was, is there any zoning history? And the response from the township was that there was no zoning history. It's A9, yes. So you're adding one residence to to this property, correct?
Correct.
And currently, there's 8 residences on the property?
Correct.
And the existing building footprint for all the buildings as shown on the site is,
12,815 square feet,
and the proposed dwelling is,
3,700 square feet,
and
3,700 square feet.
that's less than 50%. Is that correct?
Of 12,000, yes, probably 25%. I don't know.
And actually, you're not proposing any more homes for this site, just the one that's being proposed here this evening.
Correct.
Does it comply with all the setbacks, impervious coverage, building coverage,
Yes,
as indicated on the plan?
yes,
And actually, the RKW, he's present here this evening, Bob Wager, correct, the engineer who prepared the plan?
that's correct.
Also, the driveway for the plan, you're showing a driveway coming out to Leslie, as shown on proposed drive,
I am, yes.
and that's not going through the Hopeton properties.
No, it's not going to, I didn't want to create a throughway for the other homes to traverse.
Will this home be on public water?
It should be on public water and sewer.
Will it be on public sewer as well?
Yes.
And is there any stormwater management currently on the site?
Presently, there is none.
Will you be providing stormwater management?
In accordance with the code, when we would apply for a grading permit, we would have to do stormwater management for the new home.
And the property is zoned R1 as indicated on the plan, correct?
Correct.
And you're aware that R1 zoning in Radnor permits single-family dwellings?
Correct.
And are you proposing a single-family dwelling?
Yes.
What uses surround your property?
Single-family residential, as best I know.
No commercial as far as you know?
Not as far as I know.
Also, has a review been done of the Radnor Township Comprehensive Plan?
Yes.
And I'll mark as A10. This is a page from the comprehensive plan. I do have the comprehensive plan here, if the board would care to. The Radnor Township Comprehensive Plan, which is now being updated, I believe, by the township. But this is just a page from that plan indicating the preservation of residential uses. And I'll mark that as A10. That's all I would have at this time.
Any board questions?
Sure. I guess my first question is I'm sorry, a little administrative stuff here. Thanks. So this sounds like a nice house. I want to buy it. What am I buying? Am I buying the house? I mean, you're not suggesting
I'm
that
not
there's a
looking to
subdivision
subdivide.
or anything
I'm
along
not
there.
looking
So what
to
am I
sell.
buying?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
If I'm interested in living in this house,
Yes.
do I rent it?
Yes.
Do I buy it? Okay, so it's a rental.
Yes, they all are. Yeah, they're all rentals.
But the new house is also going to be a rental.
Yeah.
Okay, and what's
Hopeton, the owner, couldn't live in it. It's a corporation. I
Wha-
mean, an LLC.
how big a house are we talking about?
3,700 square feet.
Do you happen to know the subdivision history of this?
I did search this property, the Hopeton property. I traced it back to at least 1917 in the Montgomery Scott family. It was part of the trust. The upper parcel was purchased by the Montgomery Scots, I believe, back in around 1965, and they were merged into this particular parcel that you see here this evening.
And how about these two grayed out plots that aren't?
They're separate parcels. They're both under separate deeds, separate folio numbers, and actually the
Different trusts owned them.
Arborview Partners is the owner of those two parcels.
It just seems like such, you'll have an opportunity. It seems like such an odd parcel.
Obviously, it's old, and it was,
So is Radnor.
yeah. But this parcel was, as I mentioned, basically was owned by the Montgomery Scots, the Hoopton parcel, and then this was added on at a later date where the proposed home is located. But it all is in one deed, as you can see under A2. It looks like there was a plan prepared in 1974 that merged them into one deed, according to the deed.
Thank you.
The other 8 properties, those are all rented, is that correct?
Correct.
They're all
rented.
All 8 of them are?
Yes.
Because when I drove through there, it looked like some of them weren't occupied. Was I
They're-
wrong?
When did you drive through there?
A couple of weeks ago?
They're all fully occupied for, probably over a year.
And are they, how long of leases are they under?
They vary. Some are 2 years, some are 1 year.
They have early termination provisions?
Not that I'm aware of, nothing other than, I guess a tenant has a right to give 2 months' notice. As the landlord, we don't have a right to boot them or anything like that.
But the longest term of them is 2 years, is that
Right,
correct?
but like I said, some of the people have been there 10-plus years.
And is the garage property, how is that?
I let them each use one garage bay. There's a garage bay for each.
Okay.
Some of them elect to use it, some don't.
And is the Arborview Partners, is that, have common ownership?
No. I mean, they're separate.
No, but I mean, are they partners of Arborview and Hopeton, similar people?
There's some commonality, but not entire. They're not entirely owned by the same company.
You're a member of
Yes.
each of those.
I'm a member of both
Yeah.
of them, but I'm not the
So
sole
in
member.
terms of planning for the future, the owners of the properties could be working together to come up with a plan that would.
The plan for the future is to keep these as rentals. That's the current plan. It's the future plan. I lived in that area for nearly 20-plus years, and I bought them to keep as in their current state as rentals. Did I confuse you with something I said there?
Well, no, I mean, they just
Okay.
didn't seem to be in very good shape or condition.
We've probably put
For that area. so-
put 5. Well, they weren't in great shape when we bought them. So, the trust that owned those properties really hadn't put any money into them. Since we purchased them, we put in excess of $500,000 into them in the last year. And every one where someone has moved out, we in fact have done substantial upgrades to them. But the ones where people are holdover tenants, they're still, we haven't booted anyone out for the purposes of.
And the new property that it says it's 3,700 square feet, is it a single-story house that's being proposed?
It'd probably be more of a, cape, like a single story with some vaulted ceilings,
Okay.
And Mr. Hirsch, in the packet are some photographs that I should introduce here that show those properties that you were referring to. So A4, Matt,
Yes.
if you could just,
This would be, as I know that would be cottage 3. That is of someone who's been there probably 10 years or so, the Canes. And then
and are their homes similar to what is shown?
they're
in
all pretty
A4?
similar. I mean, some have had additions over the years. Maybe 4 of them have had additions.
And then A5 there, you could just. describe-
A5 is a view of Gosh, I can't tell from this direction. One of them. They're all substantially similar.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nick, I don't know, I think it's more of a question for you, but can you discuss the special exception and, I guess, address for me the justification for a ninth home on a
Okay.
lot
So-
that's already existing, non-conforming?
Yeah. So in the Radnor Code, it provides under 101A2 that extension or expansion of nonconforming uses. And there's 4 specific standards there. One being the general standard that it's not detrimental to the character of the surrounding area or interest. The surrounding area is totally residential. This is a residential dwelling as well. The area devoted to the nonconforming use shall in no case be increased by more than 50%. And the floor area is not being increased by more than 50%. And in fact, the building itself is only 1/8 of what is currently present. C there, under 2C, an extension shall conform the area height and setback regulations, which it does conform to. And D is no more than 1 extension shall be granted, and we're only asking for this 1 extension.
Any other questions, board?
The leases for the properties, are they all leased to single families?
Yes,
There's no student rentals.
there are no student rentals.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I? Yeah. Mr. Keneally, I just want to make it clear. So are you arguing that 101A2, when it says that no building shall be extended, that what you're proposing, your client's proposing, is an extension of a building?
It's extension of the nonconforming use. which
But
are
is
the
that what's-
buildings? The buildings themselves are the nonconforming use in that there's more than 1 building on the lot, without having a subdivision. So that is what we're proposing, is that this is an expansion of a nonconforming use that's not increasing the nonconforming use by more than 50%.
Okay, so and you're saying that's what subparagraph 2
Yes.
permits? Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, John? No? Okay. Sorry, I went over it with you before the meeting. Public comment at this point, or I let Nick finish? Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
No, I don't have any other witnesses. At the conclusion, I just would ask the exhibits be made part of the record.
Okay.
But I think there are, neighbors that are
Yeah,
going
oh,
to speak.
certainly. Yeah, okay. Is there any public comment then?
Good evening. My name is Bob Wilson. I'm a lawyer with Whistler, Pearlstein in Malvern, and I represent the Kempf Noble property, which was pointed out to you to be right here. I do have some questions for the witness, and I would like to call Mr. Kempf to testify as well.
Are you requesting party status?
I am requesting party status. We are an adjoining property owner.
Okay, is there any objection?
I have no objection.
Okay, we'll grant party status then.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pialino, I have a couple questions for you, if we could.
No, I can talk.
Here you go. I'll give it to you, and then I'll try to keep my voice up. Mr. Pialino, you testified earlier that this was the property of Kempf and Noble. Am I correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
In the course of your design for this property, did you have a topographic or a survey done of the Kempf property?
No.
Are you aware that one may exist?
A survey of the Kempf property, I have no idea if there's one.
Specifically, topo is where I'm really going right now.
I'm sure it exists because I see they're building a pool that was recently permitted. So I'm sure there's a grading permit, so I'm sure there's topography, but I have no familiarity with the topography. I can conclude, looking at the topography of our property, what, the contours where they're stopping and stuff, I get a general gist of it, and I've obviously driven by it.
So let's talk about that
I know the property visually from.
So let's talk about it in general terms. Where your proposed house, is that higher or lower than the Kempf property?
It would be higher.
And the driveway, am I correct that the driveway, when it's on Leslie that you're proposing, you would go uphill to get to your proposed house?
So, not 100% sure of what you're saying, but coming in from Leslie, the first section of the driveway, yes, I would think that's lower than the Kempf driveway, and at some point back here, you're starting to get higher than the Kempf property. Where that is, I don't know.
Understood. Now, when you went to propose where the house was going to be, how did you decide to place it where you did on A8?
We were picking sort of the center of the area where we felt it would, it's actually the flattest section of that area, and it sort of provides the most buffer for not only neighbors, but for our property as well.
So let's talk about the driveway for a second. You're
Sure.
proposing to do the driveway from the proposed house out to Leslie Road, correct?
Correct.
And let's look at the plan together for a second. I think you testified that there's a parking area right about where I'm pointing on.
There is, yes.
And then next to that is a shed or a indoor parking area.
Yes.
Now, that's also, that parking area accesses Hopeton Lane, correct?
It does.
And Hopeton Lane accesses in 2 out to Abraham's.
It does.
Now, is there any reason why you would not have extended the driveway from Hopeton to the proposed house?
Our reasoning was we didn't want the people from Hopeton to turn that into a thoroughfare for them to, if we connected it, in other words, they would go out the other way.
But if you were to connect the driveway from the proposed house to that parking area and therefore Hopeton, you would not need the driveway out to Leslie.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. Okay, I got you. That is a true statement.
Okay. And there's nothing that would prevent you from doing that driveway other than your desire to put it where you've put it.
I would say that's correct.
Okay. Now, in your original application,
Yes.
which is before the board, you said that what you were proposing to do, and in 2 places you said you would be raising one of the homes and constructing a new home. And on another page of the application, you said you proposed to remove an existing home and replace it. Am I correct?
Originally, we were proposing to raise one of the homes, but that tenant exhibit a strong desire that they want to stay.
Which home was that, if you
It
could
would have
point
been
out?
number 3, third
So-
one in on the left.
The one I'm pointing
Perfect.
to right now?
Yes.
All right. Now, is there any reason why you couldn't pick a different property, for example, the one that is abutting the area of the new home, to raise or remove to replace?
Well, based on that's a very low, the one you just pointed to is also one of the long-term tenants. And I know for a fact he would be very upset. I think he has a multi-year lease, and he's been there a long time.
Understood. So that was
think
a
10+ years.
discretionary decision you made?
Yeah,
Understood.
yes.
Now, in your deed to the overall property, are you aware that there is a building restriction in the deed that says you cannot subdivide, were you to do that, to less than 2 acres?
I'm not aware of specifically what you're talking about. Okay, so you'd
I
have to
will
be more
point
specific.
out to the board that in the packet that was submitted to you is a deed for the property. Mr. Cornelia is correct, and the deeds do go back to 1920. I will represent to the board that the houses were built in 1920. In 1924, there was a deed restriction placed in the deed that says if there were to be a subdivision, it could be to no smaller than 2 acres. That's a deed restriction on subdivision. I understand this is not subdivision.
One I object, just because we're talking about deed restrictions, zoning board's not here to consider deed restrictions. I mean,
Understood.
Bob and I can talk about this. I've done the research, it sounds like he's done the research. That restriction does not affect the Hopeton properties. My understanding is it may be on the other property. That property actually is more than 2 acres where the home is being built.
I think we can agree to disagree, but I want to point out to the board that you were talking about zoning history, and what has gone on. I think this is a public record, and it is a factor that should be considered because they're electing not to go with subdivision, but to come to you to ask for essentially an expansion of a non-conforming use.
I have,
No.
I do have a case. I think the board's well aware that it does not get involved in deed restrictions. That's not a matter for zoning hearing board. And I can hand up a case if that's, in dispute.
Understood. I simply wanted
Was the deed restriction there before the two lots are put together?
On my understanding, and it sounds like we've both done the research, the deed restriction was on this portion, the portion that comes out to Leslie. And that restriction says that the area has to be more than 2 acres, and you can only put one home on it. And that's actually what we're doing here. This area is more than 2 acres, and one home is being placed on it. The restriction is not for the Montgomery parcel, as I said, dates back to at least 2017. The restriction by Leslie owned all this land, I guess, on Leslie Road. That went into effect in 1922 or
1924.
1924.
But I do disagree because in A2, which is part of the applicant's package, is the deed. And in the trustee's deed on the first page of A2, it says under and subject to all matters of record. And if you then turn to the description of the property, the final page of the recorded document, it says that it is being the same as the property recorded in deed book 2539 at page 693. If you go look at that particular deed, that takes you back to 1975. 1975 takes you back to 1924, and that gets you to the 2-acre deed restriction. I'm not arguing that that's applicable. I think it's a fact that if I were you, I would want to consider.
I think, as I said, deed restrictions are not a subject before the zoning
Yeah, I'm
hearing
sorry.
board.
You
And
objected,
I think we
and that
both
was
did.
argument on the
I think we both did our
objection.
research. We kind of know where it is. And our position is the deed restriction is on this portion of the property, and that we are in compliance with it.
Okay.
Without
But-
beating it up, I will tell you that we're talking about an entire property tonight. I think you can't talk about the piece that's at the top of what's on the screen and the bottom separately. They're not. They're the same property. Just a couple more questions for Mr. Paolino. The stormwater, and if this is for your engineer, I'll be happy to come back and ask him. Where do you intend to put the stormwater for the proposed house? Management system, I'm sorry, stormwater management.
So I am not sure of that yet. I think that'll be subject to some, test wells and stuff like that, but obviously on our property.
And would your answer be the same for the stormwater that needs to handle the water coming off the proposed driveway?
I would think they'd probably be one and the same, but I've seen times where they do, separate systems.
And your last set of
The
questions.
stormwater should probably ultimately be improved if we were to build, in so much as right now, there's basically just direct flow from that site onto Mr. Kemp's property. If we build, water that falls anywhere on that house or that driveway will be collected and diverted into a stormwater management system for recharge and then dispersal. It should lead to an improvement if stormwater was a concern. The net effect should be a bonus. We're going from no stormwater to stormwater management.
Last set of questions. So as you're proposing it, this new house will be accessed from Leslie Road.
Yes, we asked, that's the same question you were asking before, correct?
But I'm
Okay.
coming back to that. So
Okay.
in order for the occupants, the tenant occupants of the proposed house, all of their invitees, their guests, their service people, their deliveries, they'll all come from Abraham's to Leslie, up and down the driveway to that house.
They may come from Parks Run to Leslie, but they're going to use the driveway, sure. I don't think they're going to walk it.
Via Leslie.
Via Leslie, if the driveway's on Leslie, correct.
I have no further questions at this time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Nick, any redirect?
No, I have no redirect.
Okay. You have no other witnesses?
I do not.
Okay. Public comment? Or any board questions as a result of the Cross? No? Okay. Is there any? Yeah, any public comment?
I would like to present Mr. Stephen Kemp if I could very
Oh,
briefly.
sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Kemp, for the board, would you confirm that your residence is this one, as we've identified earlier?
Yes, it is.
And I just want to talk very briefly about topography. Easy question. You're entirely down gradient from the proposed house property, correct?
We are, yes,
As well as the driveway will come downhill from the proposed house to Leslie.
correct.
Have you had a survey or a topographic review of your property done?
I have, yes.
I'd like to mark, can you tell me how I should mark? P1? Very good. What I'm marking as P1, sir, would you identify that for the panel?
Just, me?
Yes, please.
That's the survey of our home at 871 Leslie Road.
Okay, and that survey was performed by you while you've owned the property?
Yes,
And it was performed in conjunction with some construction that you were proposing or some improvement to the property?
correct, yes.
So to orient the folks here so they can see where your house is, let's take a look at P1 together. So if we were to position this side by side with the plan, have I done that correctly?
Yes,
So that your house and your property are in fact right here?
that's correct.
All right, so just to do a basic level of elevation and topography, the grade at the proposed house comes downhill to your house, correct?
That's correct.
And the grade of the driveway comes downhill, which would come right along here, am I correct?
Correct.
And essentially creates a bowl around your property and to the right side of your property as you look at it from the street.
Correct.
Good, just a couple more questions. The standards of the ordinance that Mr. Cornelia was talking about earlier had to do with what the impact would be potentially of this use if approved. Can you, in your own words, tell the board what concerns or worries you have about this should it be approved, the ninth house on this property?
It's primarily around the density of the property. As pointed out, it is a residential neighborhood, but frankly, most of the residences around this property are on lots of 2 acres or more. Here, there's a proposal to put most of the homes in the area are on lots of 2 acres or more. This proposal, although there's already 8 homes on a 4+ acre home lot, this would add 1 home and make 9. That's sort of unprecedented, certainly in this area of the township. A very historical area of the township, and a lot of work, I think, and effort has been put into this area by the township to preserve the quality of the area, the site views and things of that nature, and the openness of this area of the township. This goes much against that. This plan goes much against that, I think.
You heard the testimony that the driveway would be next to your property and would serve this particular house. Do you have any concerns you'd like to share with the board about the traffic issues proposed?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you can, between the residences' vehicles, but even more than that, you have delivery vehicles that are up and down Leslie Road all day long delivering packages. I mean, it would be a constant stream of probably Amazon, FedEx, and UPS trucks up and down this driveway. That's what I see happening, and I'm not in favor of it, frankly.
I have no further questions. I would just like to close by coming back to the point that your solicitor raised. I ask you to take a look at 280-101A1. I think that's the controlling section. We're here about a non-conforming use may be changed. We're not modifying a building. I just ask you to take a look at that when you consider the testimony and the application itself. I have nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Nick, any cross?
Just one. Mr. Kemp, you're aware that we're proposing one building here, correct?
Yes.
One single-family residence?
Yes.
Same as you, one single-family residence. And you're still concerned about traffic for one single-family residence?
I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any board questions of Mr. Kemp? No? Okay.
The entrance off of Leslie Road, how is that currently used? Is there a entryway through there, or is it just ground? Is it maintained or anything?
Where the proposed driveway is?
Yeah, where Mr. Paolino was proposing.
There's no drive there now.
So is that land being maintained
No,
by
it's,
the Hopeton group?
It's brush,
It's brush.
overgrown brush.
Okay.
I have an aerial from Google Maps or Earth if you'd like that to come into the record.
Okay, and is that area along Leslie Road, is
Yes.
that
Yeah.
separated from the Arborview property, or is that, is there a fence there that separates that area from the Arborview property?
I don't believe so, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Thank you.
The Arborview property appears to be a mode type lot. And then I'm happy to put these in as P2 and P3 so you can take a peek at the properties. I know you've.
Yeah, I know Mr. Paolino stated it's wooded area. You know, the area where the house is proposed is wooded. You know, which is
But the area along Leslie Road is wooded as well?
wooded brush or the
Right.
driveway.
Okay.
It's not being used, hasn't.
Okay.
I apologize, I only have the one set, but you're welcome to.
Why don't you pop them up on the table, and that way everybody can see them?
I can do that.
And if you're going to introduce them, just walk Mr. Kemp through it for purposes of establishing the record.
P2, Mr. Kemp, can you point out where your home is on the property?
Right here.
And the area that I was referring to as mode, that is the gray portion that was shown on A8?
I believe so, yes.
And the little houses that are over where it says Hopeton Lane, these are the 8 houses we're speaking about today?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what we marked as P3. And P3 is the same aerial, but it's from obviously a greater altitude. So am I correct that where my pen is pointing now is your home?
Yes.
And then this is the mode field we talked about?
Correct.
This is Leslie, this is Abraham, and this is the curve, which is Hopeton with the 8 houses.
Correct.
And this long brown structure in the middle by the parking area, that's what I talked to Mr. Paolino about. Am I correct?
Yes, actually.
And then this green area behind your house is the top of the hill where they're proposing to put the house we just looked at on P8. Am I correct?
Yes, correct.
I would move the admission of P1, P2, and P3.
Without objection.
No.
Thank you. We have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay. Any public comment? We're finally getting there. Sure, come on up. Either use the handheld or just use the lectern.
All right.
Yeah, please.
Oh, wherever that ended up. I'll find it later. Don't worry about it.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Say your full name, please.
Eric Panici, P-A-N-I-C-H-I, 264 Abrahams Lane. I'm located, well, now I can't see it. Right here.
Just a question for Mr. Panici.
Absolutely.
Do you reside there?
Yes, I do. And I have a copy of my license as well for the board
But
if
you're-
necessary.
You're not an owner, you live with your parents, or with?
I am a resident of
Yeah, no,
264
I'm not-
Abrahams
I'm
Lane.
just
Yes.
asking. You're not an owner. You're not the owner of that property. Your mom and dad. I know your dad.
That's why I'm asking. Yes. Oh, okay, thanks, guys. My name's Eric Panici, resident, 264 Abrahams Lane. Been a resident of the town for about 5 years, so I have about 35 years to go to catch Mr. Paolino, which is a property directly adjacent to the existing 4.9 acre property comprised of the 8 homes being discussed. My points are quite simple. Granting this special exception takes an existing nonconformity and makes it worse, in my opinion. This in and of itself should be the principal reason why this is not granted. Additionally, there aren't any flag lots in the Leslie Lane area of this part of Radnor. I'm sure you guys saw it as well driving through. It doesn't fit the conformity of the neighborhood. Additionally, removing this area, the backyard of these Hopeton Lane properties, basically creates not only a level of density that I mentioned in the first point, but the appearance of density to the surrounding neighbors and people driving down the streets. So once the wooded open space area is removed, you're going to see more density than currently there, which doesn't fit in the surrounding neighborhood. Additionally, in their application, item 1, subpoint F, states the location of existing and proposed improvements is accurately reflected. Everyone on this board, or a number of people on this board, drove through and saw these properties. Properties on Hopeton Lane 1, 5, and 6, or I should say units because it's all one parcel, have physical paved driveways currently that are not shown on this submitted site plan. In addition, there's a number of trees that were removed and not accurately reflected on this plan as well. Due to my prior point and knowing that this information is inaccurate, I take exception to the last sentence in the legal notice that the applicant also seeks such other relief which may be required in conformity with the plans and testimony presented. Usually in zoning cases, as everyone is aware, you put that sentence in as a catch-all if everything else is accurate. This is not entirely accurate of what's represented. Those calculations are not entirely accurate because you physically saw lot coverage that's not reflected there. So I don't need to be an engineer to know that. So it's in the public and board's best interest to be aware of all relief that the applicant is requesting and needs for this project, period. So a full topo and survey should be completed with all the updated and correct amounts at a bare minimum before any decision can be made. Additionally, that this applicant and application is essentially strip mining this property to increase the nonconformity, in my opinion, and does not meet the burden of proof necessary to obtain relief. And I'm prepared to pursue it to the fullest extent possible. Thank you guys very much for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Sure, come on up.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth?
Sure do. Steve Durham, Durham, and I reside at 870 Leslie with my wife, Cheryl. We know Matt for a long time, and Nick, actually, you represented us 35 years ago at one of these hearings, so. Yeah. I remember it because it was an anniversary night. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Did he win?
Sorry?
Did he win?
I stayed married. That's all I care about.
Okay.
He actually did win. He actually did win. So we live right here. This is our driveway. Would be right there, going up that way. And our concern is with an entrance off of Leslie. It's been discussed already. These are all 2-acre deeded lots. We signed our deed understanding that our property couldn't be subdivided. I know this isn't a question about subdivision, but nevertheless, it would be the only lot that's accessed from Leslie that's not a 2-acre lot. And so our primary concern would be the driveway, as well as, conferring a benefit to someone else that might be ultimately a detriment to us. That doesn't seem consistent with my non-lawyer reading of the regulation. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Come on up.
So I am.
Wait till you get up, yeah.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Kirsten Human, and it's Kerstin, last name Humann. Ann. So Humann. Yes. Okay, yes. I live at 265 Abrahams Lane. So where the little horseshoe of Hopeton is, it sort of drops out, and I'm across from the Panichis on the other side. The McNeils are my neighbors.
Just keep your voice
Sorry.
into the microphone.
Sorry. And the McNeils are my next door neighbors and directly across from the horseshoe. I'm more familiar maybe than some of you with Hopeton, which is a very, you've got the small little houses. I agree they haven't been terribly well maintained. There was a lot of work that went on when you bought the houses. And I guess a lot of tenants left and you've got new people in there, but it's a very crowded little street. So my concern about, and maybe that was your concern as well, trying to throw a driveway through there, accessing on Hopeton, most of the tenants park their cars on the road, even though there might be that dedicated garage. If you try to drive through there, it's very hard to get through there. You try to walk a dog through there, it's very hard to get through there. A lot of us do walk our pets and have gone through there. I don't understand the allowing for a 9th property when there are 8 on that 4.9 acres. And I don't understand how adding density is allowed there. Does that set a precedent for other people to ask for throwing more buildings on properties that are meant to have, I guess they're meant to be 1-acre lots? That feels like a subdivision to me as well, that it's being sort of excluded from the rest of the 8 properties that already exist there. There's also been discussion about it being a rental property. Is that something that would be stipulated in this variance or exemption? Would it be permanently that? Or what would the buyers of that lot be getting? How much land would they have? Would they have a separate lot? And is that a subdivision then? So I have a lot of questions. I think a lot of the neighbors were very concerned. We only had about a week to really look this over. Maybe some people would have liked to get a lawyer to take a look at all of this as well. I'm glad that Mr. Kemp was able to find somebody so quickly, but I think a lot of us have concerns. We don't want this just to be rushed through because I think there are a lot of implications that many of us haven't really been able to fully understand. And a lot of the information tonight is very new. I initially was thinking there was going to be a house taken away, and I read through 30-some pages and then realized now it's not taking away a house. You're not trading one out. You're adding a 9th when there's already an exemption to have 8 where there should only be 4. So I don't understand how that works. I'm not a lawyer. But we're concerned in, whether the driveway goes there or comes out and tries to pop out of a very awkward spot. And, it's not a very safe entry and exit coming in and out of Hopeton anyway. So I don't know if you're now adding another property coming out that way, that would also add to problems, I think, with access. But so I guess I have more questions than really a statement, but I think a lot of us would like more time to evaluate what's being proposed. That's it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else care to speak on the application? Okay, seeing none. We did have one email that was sent in. I had it open on my phone. Okay, thank you, counsel. Yeah, and that email will be part of the record. I believe you were copied on. Oh, you haven't?
I assume it's similar to what her son testified to.
She was clearly opposed.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
I believe that the McNeils also sent, or the McDevitt's rather. Wendy McDevitt said that she was sending.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, the only email that I received was from Kim Panichi.
I believe that Wendy McDevitt also was sending something in, but she may not have sent it to the right email address. So.
That's possible. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. But Kim Panichi, Panichi. So her email is part of the record as well. Yeah. Okay. I have a question. Did the applicant meet with any of the near neighbors before tonight?
I spoke to a couple of the neighbors, and I spoke to Mr. Wilson as well. We did not meet personally with them. I mean, it's a single-family dwelling is what we're proposing.
Right. The neighbors is what I'm asking.
And some of the tenants are aware too, because I believe Matt spoke to them, and I know one or two of them called me as well.
Okay. Yeah, you can't talk from the back, and it has to be loud enough to be heard. So, okay. Fine, I'll pose the question.
No,
Do you know which neighbors you spoke to?
Two neighbors called me. I believe they called me confidentially. They're not here this evening. I'm not going to disclose who they were.
Fair. Okay.
They just were asking questions. They really didn't express an opinion one way or another. They were asking questions.
Okay. Okay. Anything else then, Nick?
Yeah, the only thing that I would have is, one, the exhibits be made part of the record. And two, I think as the board's well aware, when we're dealing with a special exception, there's a heavy burden on the protestants to carry here. There has to be substantial testimony, has to be substantial evidence. It can't just be conjecture as to what the general health, safety, and welfare of the community would be. In this case, we're proposing a single residence. The whole area is single residences. Whether it's under a non-conforming use under A1, which is a change from one non-conforming use to another non-conforming use, or an expansion of a non-conforming use under A2, which is the 50% rule. Both of them are applicable in this instance. And I would request the board to grant the relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion not to approve this, because I don't think this is an expansion of the non-conforming use of any sort. It's building a brand-new building on a piece of property. It just wasn't there before.
So may I suggest that the motion be made in the affirmative? And that way negative votes would be voted down. Makes the record.
Okay.
So I know it may go against what you're feeling, but the motion should be done in the affirmative, and then if everyone's opposed to that.
I see, I see. Okay, so consequently, I would change and alter that to, correct me if I'm doing this incorrectly again, that we approve the application?
Yeah, we would grant the relief.
Okay. That's my motion.
To get things started, I will second that motion.
Okay. Do we want to add the little caveat that the motion is to
Well,
approve
it would be
based on the
granted in
plans and
accordance
testimony?
with the plans and testimony presented at the hearing. Yes, that's right.
Okay. Okay. Any board discussion?
Yes. I don't think the applicant has shown that they are eligible for a special exception under either 1 or 2. And consequently, I don't think the relief should be granted. It's not a non-conforming use being changed to another non-conforming use. It's not a non-conforming use of a building being expanded. I don't know what else there is to talk about. It's fairly cut and dried. Thanks.
I just support what John said, that we understand the original homes in Hopeton are from a historic context, and they were there before we even had the zoning, so that this was a way to capture them in the zoning. And I believe at the time that that land was added to try to level out that issue of density. Also, the flag lot that's going to be created is really against current trends and just inconsistent with the neighborhood. So I'm going to vote to not approve.
Anyone else, Bud?
I just find that the concerns of the people along Leslie Road is very compelling, and that I would certainly give deference or support to them to maintain the character of their 2-acre lots along Leslie.
John, anything else?
Nothing else.
Okay. Yeah, I concur with everything I've heard. I agree that what I heard from the neighbors was way more compelling than I heard from the applicant. And, you know, somebody said it, I think it was Mr. Panici, said that the existing nonconformity, this proposed use just makes it worse. And I think I agree with that. So I too will be opposed to the motion. Okay, well, let's take a vote then. Bud?
I vote no.
John?
I vote no.
John?
No?
I also am a no. Thank you. Okay, appeal number 3172. The applicant Nicholas and Gia Prestipino, property located at 222 Lansdowne Avenue and zoned R3 residential. The applicant seeks relief from section 280-105F of the code to allow parking in the front yard setback.
John.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Norma, I had,
Is that P2 and P3?
yeah, I had seen them, meant to say it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did P1 go?
Yeah, I have
Oh, there's the folder.
Yeah.
Okay,
Here's a, oh no,
we have
you have everything?
them.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You state your name for the record, and Norma will swear you in.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name is one at a time.
Nick Prestipino, Prestipino.
And sir?
Is that handheld microphone right there?
Yes.
Will you hand that to him, please? And then, I'm sorry, sir, what was your name?
John Smirga?
John.
John, for you, microphone.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So, Nick Prestipino, I'm the owner of 222 Lansdowne, which is the property in question. And as it was just stated, I'm here this evening seeking relief to park in my front yard. If you're familiar with Lansdowne, it's a beautiful, quiet street right outside of downtown Wayne. We love our home, we love our community, but we're the only house on the street without any sort of driveway or off-street parking whatsoever. It's also a small street. We have 3 cars, one of which is a pickup truck, so parking the street in front of the house the way we do is a huge inconvenience to the neighborhood. And John will be getting up here in a short while with more specifics, but there are just a few key main points I'd like to make up front for your consideration. The first is that the current situation in which we only have street parking is a major inconvenience and burden to my family. As I'm sure you can imagine, without a driveway, my house, we can show you in pictures here shortly, is offset pretty far back in the property. There's a small but fairly insurmountable hill in front of it, so it makes everyday tasks like taking in the groceries pretty difficult. My wife and I were blessed to welcome our first daughter in August. Getting a car seat in and out, stroller up that hill, really tough. She can't take our baby for walks herself. I need to help her with it. The second point, and kind of the whole reason we're here today seeking relief to park in my front yard, is because this design is one that I'm forced into based on property lines and the existing structure of my house. I would like to get a driveway behind my house, but there's no way for me to get a driveway behind my house. Which leads me to my last point, and I believe it's important to note that this is hopefully the first stage in what would be a longer-term plan in which I can take away the side porch and get a driveway back behind my house, or turn that porch into a garage, both of which would be allowed by code and ordinances. But just because of my current situation, money and timing, it's not in the cards for me right now. This current design, as is, allows me that possibility in the future, to get behind the house or turn into a garage. So thank you for your time on those short points. I'll turn over to John now to go through the plans. Does that work for you?
Before you get started, and maybe, John, you're going to answer this question, but you mentioned a hill. That's a word that makes all of us cringe. Do you have any idea what are the slopes themselves defined on the plan before you even get to it? Do we have a steep slope issue?
It's an embankment that was probably made when the house was built 90 years ago. It's about 4 feet high. It's about this high. And it's a rolling embankment like you see in many, many houses in Radnor. It's not insurmountable. It could be graded, it could be dealt with, and a reasonable grade can be put through it.
Do you know if it's greater than 20%?
Is it on the?
It's
is it on the
pushing.
plan, actually? Is it?
Yes, you can see the contours on the plan.
Well, it says drive point 12.76%.
I have a grade right now, a final grade for the driveway of 13%.
That's to be as constructed, 13%?
That'll be as constructed.
Do you have
The-
anything that shows us what the existing grade is?
There is contours there now, and I can look at, and it's going to be very close to 20.
Yeah, so the plan itself, I'm no expert in it, but between, what, 14 and 20% have to be shown, and then steep slopes at 20% or greater have to be,
I don't think there's any very steep slopes. But again, it's the grade that we're talking about is only 2 contours wide, which some townships and some conservation districts, your steep slopes have to go over more than 2 contours. This is only 2 contours, and it's man-made. They're not
Well, man-made has to
natural
be established by testimony and evidence.
And they're not, and just, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, they're not seeking any relief for steep slopes anyway. So if they do need that, after you're finished with them tonight, if this moves forward and the township determines that there are slopes, that'll be a whole nother issue.
Yeah, that's the issue that I think we're raising, right? We could proceed tonight, you could get approval from us, and then
We
you could
still
be
have to
forced
go get a
right back
grading
to
permit,
us.
yes.
Yeah, that's one that'll get smoked out.
In the grading permit piece that we're going for anyways?
The grading permit will be reviewed by township staff, and if they deem it, they will go to the township engineer.
Right.
Right, and then you'd be back
Yep,
to us
understood,
anyway.
understood.
So it's up to you, if you want to proceed tonight, we can take testimony, but I'm issue spotting that I wouldn't want to see you get approved tonight and then be back in front of us 90 days from now.
Appreciate it. Definitely want to move forward. I mean, I can't speak to the actual slopes, but I can't imagine they're really that bad. We have some pictures of the adjoining properties that are higher than my house, and they have driveways going through them, no problem. Again,
We
not
don't
ever
know
gonna
how
speak
or
to the
when they were put
specifics.
in.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the problem. They
Yeah.
were they pre-built this.
Yeah, and the man-made we hear a lot of it.
And none
yeah.
of them have curb openings, and none of them have ramps, and none of them have
Right.
stuff that we need, which we would be putting in.
Understood. Okay, all right, sorry. Go ahead, you can proceed then.
Well, you still stole some of my thunder. We have a driveway that will fit from the curb through properly built curb openings and grades and ramps and sidewalks. The slope of the final driveway will only be, at the top, we'll have a landing area of about 5%, and from the a 2% ramp area, and then the 13% rise up to the flat area. So as you can see, having those areas, going through the steep slopes is not a problem. You have this embankment that was made probably 90 years ago, and the ordinances are there, and that's true, but we're asking relief for that, not tonight, obviously. Now, unfortunately, there's no other place to put this driveway. The property is non-conforming in that it's supposed to be 70 feet wide and it's only 64. So it's a non-conforming lot. And as you can see from the house itself, on one side you only have about 7 feet on the southerly side. On the other side, you only have about 9 feet, and that's in slopes. Not steep slopes, but slopes enough that we would have to put in significant walls to get around the house. And I'm sure the next door neighbors would not enjoy having a 6-foot-high retaining wall right there on the property line. So, and with the advent of the the existing porch being raised and a possible garage going there, this would be the place to put the driveway. So, and if need be, if the porch was raised, a garage in the back would even be, that would where the driveway would continue, right through the porch.
Will you point out on this where the driveway is being proposed?
Right there.
Okay.
And here's the existing porch. So as you can see, the landing area would be right in front of the existing porch, and when that would be raised, a one-car garage could be built there. Or a garage in the back.
And what's to the rear of the property?
Right now, it's just a lawn.
Does it go, is there another street? Do you have other street access?
Well,
So I can speak on the rear of it. So the back of Lansdowne connects to the back of the properties that touch Conestoga. So they'll face Conestoga on the north maybe, and then I touch their southern backyard. So it's completely open space, residential property.
Okay, maybe you confused me then, when you said that at some point you could do a garage in the rear and have the driveway go in the rear.
I
That's-
just meant, I'm sorry, I meant I could get the driveway to go behind the house rather than in the front of the house, because to my understanding, the reason I'm here today is to seek relief to have the main parking area in front of my house. So I was trying to make a point that I would like to get behind the house, and this wouldn't even be an issue.
In
But
other
Once the
words, the
porch-
parking would be behind the
correct.
house.
once the porch
Apologies for not being specific.
disappears,
Yep.
they can continue the driveway to the back. So either or.
What is the structure behind the existing porch? Is that?
This is all house.
That's a deck, I think.
Well, this is a deck right here, but the hashed mark, as you can see from that outline, that is all structure.
How about right where that set of steps, it looks like, where it says
That's a
yes
porch,
there?
that's a deck. And this deck has, these are the steps coming down from the deck, and there's steps here coming down from the deck, but this is all deck in here. This is all house. There's the porch, so if the porch was ever to be raised, they would have to take off part of the deck and extend the driveway back. The garage or the macadam as we're planning it right now would be 477 square feet, not including the area and the ramps and the sidewalk outside the right-of-way. So what would be on the property is 477 square feet.
Could you discuss Lansdowne a little bit and other houses and what facilities they have?
I'd love to. Lansdowne, like I said, it's a great street. We're very lucky to have bought there a year or two ago. It's the street that the carriages go by every year and they light the Christmas tree. We absolutely love it. It's a very historic neighborhood. It's an R3 zone, and that was a conscious decision and thought of ours when we were designing this. The original person we brought out to kind of talk about the driveway just wanted to put a big double lot in front. That's not what we went with. We consciously chose sort of a more narrow driveway that went back because that fits in with the houses there. However, there is presence on the street for a large front parking area. Can I show some pictures here? They're not in my application. They'd be in addition to the exhibits.
That's fine, we'll mark them as exhibits.
Thank you.
Actually, make sure we do that housekeeping, mark your application and the rest of the exhibits, but we'll do that.
Yeah, of course. These are just two houses on my street that have parking in the front of them.
So as you go, I don't know, maybe let's take a step back.
Okay.
Let's do the housekeeping first.
Oh, I'm
So I unfortunately left my file in my office, so I don't
Mr.
have
Chairman,
anything in front of me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Why don't we go with A1 for the application, A2 for the deed, which is provided with the application, A3, a collection of 4 pictures showing the subject property from various locations, and then we can take it from there.
That sounds
as
good.
additional
So as you bring up
exhibits.
additional, just mark them, and then that way the record will stay clear. Thank you.
And this actually is probably a better place to start because the bottom two Are just street views I took, so you can maybe get a feel for the street. Like I said, smaller, narrower driveways, which is what we proposed as well. That bottom left picture, you can see, or hopefully get a feel on how narrow it gets if there's cars parked there. It's really hard for township cars to get through too. I had to move all 3 of my cars the other day for the snowplow and for the leaf pickup. So again, this would be a huge help to my family. And there's a letter of support in there too. Talked to every single neighbor. I'm friends with them. They would all love this and support it. Yes? I don't want to jump ahead in the exhibits if we'll get to that eventually.
I thought you said it in
I just mentioned neighbors, but their names are in the letter.
I think that's in the packet as well, right?
Yes, they are. I should probably also mark the plan as A4. Is it A4?
Yeah, A4.
A4. And
Let's-
then the letter of support from neighbors is A5. I have 2 copies. Is it 2 copies of the same letter? Well, I've got 2 copies. I'm lucky. So, okay, that's A5. And I think that does it.
So on A3, do either of, which, is your house depicted in either of any of these 4
It
photographs?
is, and if I could actually go to, let's call it A4, I zoomed in on the top 2, might be easier to. Wait, A4 was something else.
Yeah, that's going to be A6.
A6.
So on the left there, that's just from the street, so you can see the curb out front. That's my house right there. And then on the right is from across the street, the neighbor's house. I took it, and you can see the adjoining properties to the left and to the right.
Okay.
Is the
And
driveway going to be, where's the driveway on that picture?
It would be right here.
So it'll be straight, it won't be
No, straight in.
straight in?
I-
And the,
inside-
then the walkway will stay as is?
The walkway and then the concrete ramp would be, right where it's supposed to be.
Okay.
The sidewalk and the concrete ramp would be right back in here with the curb cuts.
So the driveway is going to be inside, will not encroach into the drip line of the tree?
Correct.
No.
And you've gotten the support from the neighbor who's to your right there for this plan, is that correct?
Yeah, the letter of support, I guess we'll call it, was from both neighbors bordering me and the one across the street. But, I mean, if we want to meet again, I get emails from everyone on the street. It's, like I said, no one likes me parking on the street. They deal with it. And everyone would like the opportunity to get off of that street, I'm sure.
how many vehicles do you, how long is the driveway? How many vehicles will fit? And I guess you're stacking the parking?
Yeah, there's a pad right here, which is 18 by 18, which will support 2 cars. And this is about, 25 feet, so you could put another car there. So the 3 cars would be off the property, on the land, not touching the right-of-way.
Any other questions from the board? Any other presentation for us? I'm not trying to rush you along, I'm just trying to.
No, it's
Keep us
pretty
moving.
straightforward. We want to build a driveway in the front yard so he can get his cars off the driveway. And the hardship is you can't get around the house.
Would you put A6 back up, if you wouldn't mind? That's the zoomed in. The house to your right. Yeah, to the, well, the picture next to that, behind the Jeep there. Is that driveway, is that a driveway right there?
Yes, it is. There's a driveway here and there's a driveway here that have been cut in at some point in time.
Okay.
And as precedent, there's a property on Lansdowne Avenue that has a parking lot right in the front yard. Now, that's true front yard parking, where the eventual plan is to go right through this building to park in the back.
Okay. Look, I'm already forgetting public comment.
We won't let you forget.
Any public comment? Seeing none. Okay. Anything else to present to us?
No, sir.
Okay, do you wish to move your exhibits into the record
Yes.
without exception?
And can I get A6, please? Thank you.
Do you want to
Okay.
mark this one for submission as well, or was that not relevant?
Oh, yeah, let's mark that as A7, and then you'll,
Oh,
yeah. Since we referred to it, it should be in, yeah.
Norma, that was referred to previously as the property with a parking lot in front. And that, I think, is an accurate characterization of A7.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the applicant be granted the relief requested in the application in accordance with the plans and testimony presented at this evening's hearing.
Is there a second? Any discussion? No, it seems pretty straightforward to me as well. We'll take a vote then. I'll start with you, John.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure. John? Bud? I'm also yes. Good luck with the project.
Good
Thank
luck.
you. Thank you for your
Okay.
time.
Thanks.
Appeal number 3173. Are they still on our agenda?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I thought Nick was here for that, no? Oh, maybe he's out in the hallway. Okay. Appeal number 3173. The applicant Villanova University, property located at 800 East Lancaster Avenue, the refectory, and zoned PI planned institutional. The applicant seeks relief to place a sign above the door on the building housing the refectory restaurant. The property is located in the comprehensive integrated college development of the PI planned institutional zoning district. The proposed sign is classified as a projecting sign in the ordinance, which is not permitted in the PI zoning district. Applicant seeks relief from section 280-119J of the zoning code, which forbids projecting signs except as may be provided within the ordinance. Applicant seeks such other relief which may be required in conformity with the plans and testimony presented. Mr. Coniglia?
Evening, Nick Cornelia, representing the applicant. We'll have one witness probably this evening, Chris Kowalski, who's right there behind me. I think everyone's aware where the refectory is. It's in the commons area of campus. The issue really is that, and any of you who have been there, at least the first time, is kind of difficult to find. And that's our concern because you can't see it from the street. Even when you enter into the commons area, you still can't find it. You have to walk around and try to locate it. Currently, as you see on A12, the current sign is just that refectory sign on the wall that can't be seen. The sign that we are proposing is this projecting sign located in this area here. In the township, there's only two areas where a projecting sign is allowed. One area is the Garrett Hill District, and the other area is the Wayne Business District. They're the only two areas. And Chris will testify as to the difficulty with finding the refectory when you enter campus and the need for the sign.
Nick, is the projection, this is going to be a dumb question. It's because it sits perpendicular to the wall?
Yeah, it sits perpendicular to the wall, will be much easier to see. And, you know, when you enter that area, hopefully you'll be able to see the refectory sign projecting out, whereas right now you can't even see the wall sign where it is. I think this is on Chris.
I do. Christopher Kowalski, K-O-V-O-L-S-K-I.
Chris, what's your position with the university?
Assistant Vice President for Government Relations and External Affairs.
Let's talk a little bit about the area that we're referencing. First, A2, that's a copy of the deed for this area. Actually, I believe it's older, but this is one of the other deeds as we move forward from 1911.
Correct,
for that
it
area.
is.
A3, if you can just tell the board what A3 represents and where we are talking about. Here's a pointer if you want to use that.
A3 is a map of campus, and the area that we're talking about is this building right here. I should know this, I believe it is Friar Hall, and it is at the intersection of Lancaster and Ithan Avenues.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as A4, which is another aerial map, which has a better view of what we're talking about.
Yes, this is a Google map of the same area that we were just discussing. You can see that the area in question is part of our apartment development, the Commons, residence hall development for students, and the restaurant faces Lancaster Avenue.
And A5, kind of a similar type sign or picture.
Correct. This is zoomed in, same view, again showing where the location of the restaurant is, near the intersection, as you can see clearly here, but not at the intersection, slightly set back from that area.
And what's the need for the projecting sign? Why do we need this sign?
This is a fairly unique location for a restaurant. As many will recall, the residence halls were the priority for this development, and the addition of the limited amount of retail, like the restaurant, was sort of a secondary way to serve the population and the community. So therefore, it's located slightly different than perhaps if you were building something new with a focus on a restaurant in this area. The parking for the restaurant and the retail is in the large parking garage. We call it our Ithan garage, or I-1 on the campus map. That is on Ithan Avenue, and it is just south of the intersection with Lancaster Avenue. So when you come to the restaurant, a member of the public will park in this parking garage and come out. And if you're not familiar with the location of the restaurant, it's very difficult to know where to go. There is no signage that points you up to the corner and across. And when you come out, because of the way the sign that is on the wall, right now it is facing the street, there's no markers to indicate your ultimate destination.
I'm going to show you a couple photographs of the Commons area, if you can tell the board what they represent. First, A6.
Sure. A6 is a photo standing roughly at the intersection of Ithan and Lancaster, looking southwest.
And is the refectory in view in that?
It is. The refectory door is right here.
And is that an accurate view of really what you see?
When you're standing at that corner, yes, it is.
Can you actually see? Could you tell where the refectory is if you didn't know ahead of time?
You cannot.
A7, is this the current wall sign?
Correct. Yes, it is.
A8, you can describe what that represents?
Sure. This is standing across Ithan Avenue in front of our Performing Arts Center, the Mullen Center. You're looking across Ithan Avenue west, and the entrance to the refectory is here. And again, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to distinguish.
A9?
This is on the sidewalk in front of the Commons, in front of the residence halls, looking east toward the Mullen Center, which is here in the distance. These tables and chairs are in front of the refectory. They represent the space for outdoor dining, but it is not clear how to get into the refectory if you are coming this direction and are unfamiliar with the area.
And actually, those tables, I assume, are not there.
They're currently not there.
A10?
I'll speak slowly. A10 is a view looking west as you come out of the parking garage. So the parking garage would be to the left, and in the end, the exit is actually just out of the frame. So if you come out of the parking garage after parking your car, and then you turn to look for the restaurant, there is really no indication that you are looking in the right direction. So the area where the restaurant entrance is right here, and the projecting sign would come out, which would be a helpful marker. Even for folks who may know where they're going, it's a reassurance.
And then A13. And we'll refer to A12 next to actually go over the sign.
A13 shows the distance from the street, distance from the curb, and from the right-of-way of the sign location. So roughly 48.5 feet from the curb line of Lancaster Avenue, and roughly 80.7 feet to the right-of-way.
Now I'm going to show you what is marked as A12. And A12, it does have dimensions of the sign. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, and it actually shows the height, the width, and the size. And actually the face of this sign, whereas the refractory portion, the oval portion itself, what's the size of that area?
The oval portion, if you were to measure by widest points of length and width, is 2 feet by 3 feet, so 6 square feet.
And actually be less because it's oval.
Right.
And it shows, ornate bracketing as well.
Yes,
around the sign.
it's been designed with ornamentation to reflect some of the light fixtures that are on the building and to pick up on the style of the signage already in place for the restaurant.
And how is it going to be lit?
It will be illuminated from 2 pointed lights from above on the bracket above the oval part of the sign.
So actually, the lights, as indicated, are right, close to the sign, just
Correct.
illuminating it.
Illuminating just the sign.
It's not internally lit.
Correct.
That's all I have, unless the board has any questions.
Have you been to design review, or you're waiting for this?
Waiting for this.
Correct. Waiting for this.
I have received a couple phone calls and emails. It's the old story we've always heard, where they felt that Villanova misrepresented what this was going to be. We did talk about a student dining hall. We did talk about a school store, if you will, but never a public restaurant. So they feel it's an opportunity for people to voice their unhappiness with that. Looks like a great design. I understand the need for it, but hopefully there aren't multiple opportunities to do more of these.
I can't imagine a scenario where we would need to come back for additional signage for this use. Excuse me? We're happy with this use. We want to keep it and make it as successful as possible. I will say, the challenge in locating the restaurant is not necessarily for those who live locally who have not been to this site. We have roughly 300,000 campus visitors each year, many of whom are on campus as prospective student applicants and their families. And so when we're talking about opportunities to better highlight the location of the restaurant, it is for folks who are coming to campus for those kinds of purposes, in addition to helping those who are coming from the local area looking to patronize a restaurant.
The design that appears on A12, is that been professionally done?
Correct, yes.
And by professionally, I mean it's in your mind or the mind of the applicant, that it's satisfactory for the needs that you perceive you have?
Yes.
Thanks.
The existing sign, that's there, that remains?
We would like to keep that there, yes.
Does that require separate relief then for 2 signs
That's existing, I believe. Oh, you mean 2 signs on?
on the same, yeah?
We would have to confirm that, but I believe it would fall within the allowable
Yeah,
sign
signage,
area
yeah.
for. Yes.
Total area.
Total
Yeah.
area, right.
I'm
Yeah, you can
venturing
have a
into-
wall sign, right. You can have a wall sign and.
I'm venturing into depths where I have no idea, so that's why I'm asking.
And we don't have any freestanding sign for the restaurant.
Yeah, and that's a good lead into my other question. So one of the ideas here is, I agree, it's impossible to find that restaurant, and I live a stone's throw away. But what other considerations were given for directional signs, for instance, coming out of the parking garage, or even, a pylon-style sign at the corner, something along those lines?
Those aren't allowed in the township. We have sandwich board signs that we've actually removed that would be helpful wayfinding. We do have signage in the garage, in the vestibule, that sort of indicates you're going in the right direction. But again, when you come out, there's not anything else that we can add there. If you're driving, there are a couple of small signs that point the way toward refectory parking, but we're limited within the township's code about what we can do for intermediate signage along the way.
Any other questions? No?
Maybe a set of feet from the garage on the sidewalk?
We could.
Right to the
Some
front
crumbs,
door?
some literal crumbs, yes.
All right. Any public comment? Seeing none. Nick, anything else?
I have nothing else, just the exhibits be part of the record, please.
Yeah, without exception. Okay. Is there a motion?
It's my job. Mr. Chairman, I would move that the applicant be granted the relief requested in the application for relief from Section 280-119J of the code in accordance with the testimony and plans presented here this evening.
Second.
Vote? John?
Yes.
This is easy. John?
Aye.
John? But I'm also in favor. Good luck with the project. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, so we do have the meeting for February 15th, I do not believe is going to happen. I don't think we have any matters on our agenda. So with that, I think we'll see everybody in March. We're adjourned. Thank you.